All right, so let's move into what is our agenda for today. We just went over the code of conduct. We're going to talk about the contents and goals of the bill. We're going to talk about the history of the legislation, how Democrats respond, what's next, and then we'll have a discussion at the end. So back to that question. It's imperative that we unite every intersection of the working class, but what does that look like in this moment? What is the ruling class's most effective weapon in preventing workers from uniting? Can anyone take a guess? What is their most effective weapon right now?
Division.
Division. And how do they achieve that?
Through media.
Through media, through propaganda, right? And so just recently, I was watching a clip from Fox News, which is honestly terrible. I hate watching Fox News, but it's really important for us to know what they're talking about, right? Because that helps us understand what kind of propaganda they're spreading and how we can combat that within the working class. And so, yeah, there was a segment on Fox News where House Speaker Mike Johnson, he talked about how this bill is helping the U.S. return to fiscal sanity and tax cuts for the average Americans, which we all know is not true, or that this is the Republican Party flexing their muscles and doing great good for the American people, as if we haven't already learned that trickle-down economics doesn't work.
Right.
And so, you know, as much as watching Fox News is similar to putting hot sauce in our eyes, when we wear the safety goggles of class consciousness, the hot sauce doesn't blind us. It allows us to understand how this propaganda is being spread and how to combat it in everyday conversations. So our battle ultimately is not Republican versus Democrats, but the workers against the billionaires.
That's right.
The propaganda they have wielded is the age-old tactic of blaming the economic disasters perpetually caused by the ruling class on immigrants as well as black and brown people. And so they just lack creativity. They don't have anything other to come up with because their whole argument is baseless. And so our current hurdle is helping workers by building more political consciousness around these attacks so workers can collectively remember who our enemy is.
Yes.
And this bill is even an attack on Trump's base. So actually there was a study done and it said voters who felt more anxious about their economic circumstances supported Trump over Harris. And also that among Trump's voters, they said that family finances were falling behind, a group that grew from 2 in 10 voters in 2020 to 3 in 10 this year. And he also carried more than half of the voters who were, quote, very concerned about the cost of food, the cost of housing, and their own health care costs. So with that knowledge, I think it's important again to remember that we have more uniting us as working class people rather than dividing us.
Yep.
That's right.
All right, so let's look at what the current conditions of the working class is right now. So U.S. workers are being stretched thinner than ever. So the first point we're going to discuss, can someone read it out to me?
More Americans are using buy now, pay later schemes to afford groceries.
That's right.
Oh my goodness.
And so, yeah, as we can see here, this is a graph and it talks about what consumers are using buy now, pay later schemes for. Groceries at 25%, things like clothing, technology, home decor, furniture, supplies, beauty, body products, travel, sports, fitness equipment, events, restaurant food, toys, dining out, other. What do we not see on this list that people have historically used credit for? Things like
Cars.
Yep, cars, housing, right, to buy a house. So these are everyday things that workers are using buy now, pay later for. So some recent statistics are that 41% of buy now, pay later users say they paid late in the past year, up to 34% a year ago, or up from 34% a year ago. And surprisingly, high-income borrowers are among the most likely to pay late, along with men, young people, and parents of young kids. And then also, like I said, more people than ever are using it for groceries. And amongst these are mostly millennials and Gen Z people that are using this kind of services. All right, next, we're seeing so much evidence of the impact of global warming within our society. So can anyone just raise your hand and we can go through what are some cases of climate catastrophe that you've seen so far this year?
The floods in Texas.
Yeah, exactly.
And North Carolina and New Mexico and
New
Jersey, New York.
Yeah. All over. And the thing about the one in Texas, it was the same day that the big beautiful bill was signed in.
Boo.
Boo, that's right. And you know, subways getting flooded, people are dying. There's not just floods, but there's wildfires.
I had to live out through Lyft, and I had to drive somebody all the way from 30th Street all the way up to Metro Park Station. That's like up there by the North Jersey, close to the Newark Station.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because the Amtrak tracks is flooded.
Yeah. And these instances are happening more and more frequently. And as these instances are happening, are we seeing our government do anything about it?
No.
No. People are being left to raise their own funds, to come together, to bring whatever supplies they have together, to help each other. It's truly barbaric, the kind of circumstances that we're living under right now. And so, real quick, I have...
All of us on this side of our property, we also own the opposite side of the creek, made it out alive in a very horrific, horrifying way. The gentleman to the left lost his wife and 2 children, and on the other side of her house, all 3 of them was a mom and both of her sons. They're all gone too. We've had no county help, no state help until day, I think 11. They didn't even know we were out here for the first 3 days. We were out here all by ourselves, no water, no electricity, no nothing. They didn't even know our road was out. When we finally called and got a hold of somebody, they said, well, you guys have another outlet. And I said, no, we have one way in and one way out. Well, I guess we'll get someone out there to look at that. Day 11. You live somewhere, you pay your taxes, and this is what you get. If we're counting on the county, it could be here for months.
Yeah. And so this is the result of the EPA being cut, the National Weather Service being cut, FEMA funds being cut, FEMA funds being used for alligator Alcatraz.
Shame.
That's right. And so this is one of the most dire conditions that we're facing. And it's not just in the US, it's happening all over the world right now. All right, the last point, obviously this is not an all-inclusive list of all the things that the working class are struggling with, but these are the main points that I wanted to highlight. And last point, can someone just read this real quick?
Increased homelessness rates. That's something that the Republicans and Democrats both are not talking about.
Exactly.
And the bad part about it, so I want to touch on that because I see so much of it. It's not just the people that's most scared. It's the people working 9 to 5s that are homeless, that are living in their cars, and not with families living in cars.
Yeah, a large.
And then they get like these memberships at all night gyms. And that's where they take their showers at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A huge percentage of homeless people are working 9 to 5 jobs or other sorts of jobs and still not able to afford housing.
And just along with that, there's a huge amount of vacant housing in office space.
Exactly.
Both ends.
Yeah, we have enough empty housing to be able to house all the homeless people that exist in this country, but it's because housing has been privatized. It's, these developers and landlords that have the final say in what happens to the housing, and if it's not making profit for them, they'd rather just leave it empty. And so that, like people were saying, these are some of the big problems.
That's just like throwing food away. The restaurants throw perfectly good food away.
Exactly. Yeah, actually.
Because it's set an hour too long.
Yep, exactly. And all the food restrictions and regulations, which like forces you to throw out food that's still good. And also the amount of food waste that we create in the US alone could feed all the hungry people around the world twice over. And so it's not like we don't have systems that are able to produce all the food that we need.
Right.
It's just mismanaged and not prioritized for people who need it. And so some statistics about homelessness in the US. First off, in Philadelphia, over 4,300 individuals experience homelessness on any given night, according to the latest data. That's a lot of people.
That's conservative.
Yeah, and that's on the conservative end. And this includes people that are in shelters and unsheltered population as well. And there's not even enough shelter space for everyone that's homeless in Philadelphia, and that's a huge other issue, not just here, but in other cities as
And
well.
the funding is only cut for shelter probably.
Yeah.
And the SNAP funding is already affecting like food pantries around here. Like some of the food
Yeah.
pantries are not opening up. Some of them are shutting early or have limited stuff more so than they did several weeks ago. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And the SNAP benefits are going to impact food deserts even more. So areas where they may have one or two grocery stores that are mom and pop stores, like a large amount of the people in that neighborhood use SNAP, and now they're not able to use SNAP to get those groceries. And so those places are going to become even more of a food desert. The shift between medical debt and homelessness as like leading to even more Americans to become unhoused. So they're starting to do work requirements for Medicaid. So you have to work about 80 hours per month. And this means a lot of elderly folks will be excluded from being able to get Medicaid, people who have disabilities, and many other circumstances. And then also there was 930 billion cuts to Medicaid funding. There is going to be 938 billion over the next 10 years. So this means it's going to have a direct impact on increasing homelessness. And then also, even more Americans will need to rely on buy now, pay later schemes to buy groceries with SNAP cuts, like we touched on earlier. This is going to be the deepest SNAP cut in history, with $267 to $300 billion over the next 10 years. And states are now forced to pay 5% of SNAP benefits and 75% of admin costs, which previously it was 100% federally funded. So it's putting even more burden on states. And then also this bill will exacerbate climate catastrophe as well. And this is because it's killing clean energy initiatives. It's also going to be gutting pollution reduction programs, and it will reduce the overall energy additions to the grid by at least 50% at a time where our electric grid is failing and under a lot of stress with extreme weather-related events. So here's some more components of this bill and why it's class 4. They also want to do $140 billion for border security and interior enforcement. Shame, that's right. $45 billion for detention capacity to house over 100,000 people daily, an 800% increase. Shame. $29.85 billion to ICE and to hire 8,500 new officers. That now ICE will have more than the FBI. And finally, $153 billion towards military funding, including $25 billion for Trump's Golden Dome missile defense system, and $2.2 billion towards the acceleration of hypersonic missiles. Meanwhile, eliminating homelessness in the United States would cost anywhere from $11 billion to $30 billion per year. We could easily do that. But again, that's not the priority of the ruling class. They'd rather see us dead so they can be able to make profit. And also providing universal health care will cost over $450 billion annually in the US. Another feasible thing that we could pay for with the tax dollars that we already collect. So the components of this bill feign security, but the crime is not a result of immigration. Violence is an inherent part of capitalism as a way for the ruling class to maintain power and dominance. Establishing collective safety and moving out of a system of barbarism would start with ending homelessness and providing universal health care. All right, up next, we're gonna have one of our comrades, Gabby, come up and talk about the history and context.
Hey everybody. So I'm going to present really briefly on some of the background history and context. Like Kier pointed out, we are seeing a huge number of attacks on our democratic rights, on the rights of working class people. And what's unprecedented about these attacks is the speed at which they're happening. It's a barrage, like one after the other every day. There's something new. 3 more things coming out about what is terrible that's happening and who's getting fired and who's losing their health care and who's losing access to food and shelter. And so that is harrowing. But we also understand that the nature of these attacks and the resistance against them is very organic to the system of capitalism. So let's look at some examples of how the right-wing assault on democratic rights has been going on for decades. Just a few examples here. Back in the 80s, Reagan really created the model. Yeah, boo! Yeah, Reagan really created the model for Trump in many ways. Not only in being an actor that became the president, which is its own insane thing for us to consider, but also in developing the strategy of robbing the poor and giving it to the rich. So in the course of 5 years during Reagan's term, the wealthy went from being taxed 70% on their income to only being taxed 28%. And just like today, he kicked 600,000 people off of Medicaid and cut funding for SNAP, right? So we're seeing this in the course of a few months, but this is a playbook that's already been used. We also despise Ronald Reagan because of his role in popularizing the term welfare queen, which is a racist term that demonizes poor working black women for using government assistance, when we all know that the main beneficiaries of this capitalist system are the billionaires. The people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. They are the ones who are benefiting the most from the United States government and their crimes, again, of stealing from the poor and giving to the rich.
That's right.
So we can go on that, but it's not just the Republicans, right? In 1996, Bill Clinton kicked 7 million children off welfare in a bill called Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act. What we know today as temporary aid for needy families used to be unrestricted cash assistance. But when the Clinton administration put restrictions on this aid, black families experienced the worst effects and the most restrictions. And this expands to basically any issue that affects any working person in the United States. You can look at the effects on black people and it's almost guaranteed going to be worse than the whatever average they're coming up with. So something for us to continue to keep in mind. Clinton also cut hundreds of thousands of federal jobs with bipartisan support. And I know no one in here thinks so, but if anyone thought that Obama was better, don't look at his administration's Budget Control Act of 2010, where he extended Bush-era tax cuts while also slashing funds for programs like LIHEAP, which is again for hardship assistance. And our comrade Brian, who supports people with hardship applications, can talk about just how many people in Philadelphia specifically need these programs that are being cut. So are we just gonna sit around and take this treatment? No, we are not. Absolutely not. And no one ever in history, in their right mind, was getting bullied and just sat there and took it unless they were really crazy. They weren't in their right mind.
Right.
So for us, we know that history proves repression always breeds resistance. For many years, people thought that the system of slavery would never end until enslaved Africans rose up in a general strike, fought, and won their freedom. The 8-hour workday was also won through bloody struggle, as were the gains of the civil rights movement. We saw resistance during the Occupy movement, Black Lives Matter, and the George Floyd uprisings of 2020. Over the last 2 years, millions of people have joined in the ongoing struggle to free Palestine, something which many organizers who've been working for decades would have never seen. These are all ongoing battles. We still have many more fights to win, and that fight is far from over. But we have a rich history of struggle that we can learn from. People all across the United States are seeing the true nature of this capitalist system and rising up against it. And not just the United States, but around the world. Even though repression breeds resistance, in the constant battles of oppressor versus oppressed, sometimes we win, but often we lose. These attacks, losing Medicare, losing Medicaid, hundreds of thousands of workers losing their jobs, the insecurity, the violence that we're seeing in the streets, we're not winning, right? But we can look throughout history and see examples of times where we have won, including in our own history, right? This is not just somewhere else, somewhere far away. Struggles that people thought would never be won in the United States were won through organizing, through consistent effort. But for us to win that ultimate fight, to defeat Trump, to defeat the billionaire agenda, we are going to need to have a plan. We're going to have to learn these lessons from history and come up with a strategic plan to win this fight back so that we can overcome that. And so with that, I want to pose a question to you before I turn it over to Brian. What are some examples of resistance to Trump's attacks that we have seen? Let's take like 3 or 4 people. Yes.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, that's like I can't see behind me, but I mean ICE, like fighting back against ICE. There have been numerous. One second. Okay, there have been numerous instances where people have really stopped and completely like not allowed ICE into their neighborhoods. They've been run out of Home Depot parking lots. That people are resisting at levels, you know, in LA of like thousands of people who are resisting against this and standing really firm that you can't just kidnap our community members and take them to God knows where and do that. So
We'll take Ikemba and then Luke.
Yeah, so I was going to say that. Can I speak globally as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Iran is I think is a good example.
That's right.
Yeah, I just I think this was yesterday, maybe the day before, where there was a naval ship, I think, or something that was in Iran's waters, and there was a helicopter, Iran's helicopter. This was a military helicopter or something, like told me, hey, you guys better turn around. And so it was a standoff, but the U.S. naval ship turned around and got out of Dodge. So I think that's an example, and there's, I think, several other countries. The last one I would give is like China as well. I like what China did, where they are going to give like 30-something African countries, they're going to drop the tariffs, like zero tariffs, which is kind of like a pushback against what Trump is doing, where he's trying to raise the tariffs on African countries and other nations.
Yes, we love the global connection as well, and then we'll wrap up with Luke.
Yeah, I was going to say what Caitlin said about the LA riots, but also...
riots?
Or not the riots, the LA riots. But I guess, you know, we're seeing a lot of increased, like, action in the labor movement as well. We're seeing a lot of strikes. These might not be directly against Trump, but they're because of policies Trump is enacting that are emboldening these companies to treat workers worse.
Awesome. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian to talk about how we can take these pieces of resistance and create the plan that's going to get us to win.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm really disappointed that nobody brought up everything that the Democrats are doing to resist against Trump. I mean, really, what is the Democrats' plan? Where have they been? I don't think I've seen Kamala Harris since the Met Gala. It's like, I'm just saying. But wait, no, there have been some Democrats in Congress that have been taking to social media to be like, hey, this is bad. Yeah, exactly, you know? And it's just completely unhelpful coming from people who have been elected to, you know, like, stop that kind of stuff that's happening right now. But it's not like the bill is a surprise either, you know? It's not like anybody is caught off guard by any of this, because it's exactly what Trump and Russell Vogt and the authors of the Project 2025 plan, you know, promised. It's exactly what they said they were going to do. And as Gabby pointed out, you know, this has been the playbook for the past 40 years. So what exactly is the Democrats' strategy? Yes. Yeah, this is Hakeem Jeffries' strategy. This is the top Democrat in the House. He posted a picture on Instagram with a baseball bat and the caption, "Protecting your health care is as American as baseball, motherhood, and apple pie." I'm not even going to get into the American as motherhood thing, but who is protecting our health care, Representative Jeffries? Nobody. And some people might say that's not fair. You know, Hakeem Jeffries gave a 9-hour speech on the House floor, which I guess is supposed to be some like impressive form of resistance or something. But do you guys remember, who remembers the last time a politician gave a record-breaking speech to protest Trump? It wasn't that long ago.
Cory Booker?
Yes, exactly, yeah. Remember that 25-hour speech like a couple months ago where Cory Booker promised to fight back against Trump? That wasn't even a real filibuster, by the way. He didn't stop any legislation from getting passed with that. 2 days later, he voted to send more weapons to Israel. So that Trump and Netanyahu could continue to scale up the genocide in Gaza. So this 25-hour monologue that that Cory Booker put on was just complete political theater. So what does Cory Booker have to say about this bill? Let's take a look. Let's hear him out.
Cory Booker of New Jersey. Senator, do you agree with your colleague that this legislation is, quote, immoral?
Well, I'll go further. I think it's a moral obscenity, and it is violence in the sense of what it will do to many families by denying them health care when they're sick, by denying them food when their children are hungry, denying our seniors critical care in their latter years, denying the disabled the kind of support that they need. This bill is a moral obscenity.
Yeah, so a moral obscenity, Cory Booker. What does that even mean? What's the plan, Senator Cory Booker? I mean, how are we going to stop this? The video goes on for 8 more minutes, and he doesn't offer any kind of proposal about how to fight back. It's just insulting to hear these people grandstand about morality and violence when they're actively funding a genocide and watching as our rights and protections are getting stripped away. We'll talk about it more in a little bit, but I want to give some more of these Democrats a chance, you know, and good faith to see what are they doing. How about Chuck Schumer? You guys don't like him? Okay, he's the top Democrat in the Senate, and so he's got to have something really good planned. Let's see.
Mr. President, Minority Leader, Mr. President, today, Senate Republicans betrayed the American people and covered this chamber in shame. In one fell swoop, Republicans passed the biggest tax breaks for billionaires ever seen, paid for by ripping health care away from millions of Americans, taking food out of the mouth of hungry kids. This is not a big, beautiful bill at all. That is why I moved on the floor to strike the title. It is now called The Act. The Act? It is really a big, ugly betrayal.
Yes, profound. Oh wait, that didn't stop it from passing?
Right, yeah, so this is the top Democrat in Congress, and his plan is to change the name of the bill. This is really what this is really what we're dealing with. I have more examples, but I think y'all get the point. We can talk about it more later if you want. Come up to me, I'll give you more examples. But I want to go for a second to a talking point that Democrats used a lot during the 2024 election. This idea of saving democracy. You know, we have to stop Trump from being elected because our democracy is at stake. It doesn't matter how bad the candidate is. We have to save democracy. Who remembers hearing things like that during the election? Yeah. And now that Trump won, they're asleep at the wheel. They're throwing their hands up, and their messaging is basically that we have to resign ourselves to whatever the far right has planned for us. And, you know, they can sit around and talk about how the election was stolen by Elon Musk, which, like, yeah, true. But, you know, they also will sit around and blame Black and Latino men for voting against their interests. But one thing they will never do is interrogate how their straight up refusal to fight for working people is to blame for where we're at right now. But the thing is, they know this, and we know this, and they know that we know this, and we know that they know that we know this. So it really doesn't matter, because neither party has ever been interested in representing the workers, the people who make our society run. They've always represented corporations and the billionaires who own them. Musk buying the election for Trump was not some unprecedented thing. Billionaires have been buying elections for both Democrats and Republicans in this country for decades. And none of these politicians care about the things they pretend to care about, like the fact that millions of people are drowning in debt because they wanted an education, or because they got sick, or because they had to take out a loan to buy food to feed their family, as Keir was talking about, or that people are dying because they can't afford their medicine, or that extreme climate events are becoming more regular and more deadly, like Keir was also talking about. You know, they don't care about any of that stuff. It's been regular people, it's been working people who have contributed to most of the relief efforts in Texas over the past few weeks. Mexican volunteer firefighters are coming to the US to provide aid while our emergency services in FEMA are getting gutted and Democrats in Congress are making TikToks. So I can't even begin to unpack how much that says about the system that we live under.
Yeah, I got a saying for Democrats and Republicans. Our nickname for Democrats is Devilcrats. And Republicans is we fuck us over again.
There we go. You heard it here first. So Democrats don't care about the democracy they talk so much about saving, because we don't live in a democracy, and that's why I got Brother Malcolm up here. Who can tell me what Malcolm X said about American democracy?
American democracy is hypocrisy!
Yes, exactly. American democracy is hypocrisy. And what was he talking about in that speech? He was talking about violence. He was talking specifically about the violence of the police against black people in this country and the hypocrisy of painting the victims as the ones who were being violent. So bringing it all back to Cory Booker calling this bill violence, what about the violence of a system that allows killer cops like Mark Dial to walk free while Eddie Irizarry's family has to live with the pain and the loss of their loved one for the rest of their lives? And for all of that to be happening at the same time as Mumia Abu-Jamal and thousands of other prisoners, political prisoners, black people in America, sitting behind bars for crimes they didn't commit? What about the violence of a system that is constantly expanding its police and ICE and military budgets with bipartisan support?
Shame.
And now they're talking about violence? Hypocrisy.
Right.
So when Democrats talk about saving democracy, they're obviously lying to us. And the same is true for when they talk about spreading democracy in other parts of the country.
Right.
That part.
That's a conversation for another time, even though it really is just a continuation of this very same conversation.
Right.
And by the way, here's Cory Booker hiding from the camera during that.
Receipts. Loser.
Yeah. But the one thing that we're going to do here that the Democrats don't do is talk about how we fight back. We're going to make a plan.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that a lot of you have seen what's going on in New York, and with the recent mayoral primary, Democratic primary. We're only getting to this point because both parties have successfully convinced their population up to this point that they have their best interest at heart, even though we know that's never been true. But as we see with what's happening in New York, the propaganda is not really hitting anymore. Zohran Mamdani, a Democratic Socialist, won the mayoral primary, and now the establishment is freaking out. They don't know what to do. Trump and Fox News are sounding the alarm about communists taking over the country, and I think people in this room probably know that his platform isn't even really communist. It's free buses, it's stabilized rent, it's city-run grocery stores, all very rational proposals. And these things even exist in other capitalist countries too. And people are just like, hell yeah, we want those things. People are uniting around a political program that benefits the working class instead of billionaires and corporations. And that's what really scares the establishment.
That's right.
If we take just some of the vast wealth held by a few individuals, and use it to make people's lives easier, what else might we want? What else might we start asking for? That's the terrifying thought to the ruling class. Chuck Schumer and Donald Trump are completely united in crushing that kind of momentum. And that's how you know that it works. When we exercise even a little bit of our power as workers across racial lines, across gender lines, across generational lines, and advocate for a program that would actually benefit us, Democrats and Republicans are immediately on the same side against us, the working class. And so suddenly they agree on who the real threat to democracy is. And don't get it twisted. It's not Zohran Mamdani that they view as the threat. It's the 40,000 people who went out and knocked doors to advocate for a platform that actually meets their needs. So we can have opinions and differences about this or that candidate, but when we're thinking about these questions, it's really about the people behind these movements that make them run, and that's what it always is. And so, if our government isn't really able to deliver the things that we need, the things that we all get together and organize and demand that we deserve as people living on this planet, which I think we know they're not going to do, then we need a revolution. And that is what the PSL believes we need. We need to build a new revolutionary government that serves people and the planet. And that might sound like a large task. It is a large task. And it starts with an idea. It starts with the idea that there is a precedent for us to change reality for the better. It's been done before. Not under our current conditions in this particular place, but if you think about our current conditions, think about all the resources that we have and what we could do with them. All of the empty houses, all of the people living on the streets. We could cancel all of the debt. We could feed our communities. We could have good paying jobs for people in unions. People, I could go on, but there's so much that we would be able to do, and it wouldn't even take very long. A lot of these things could be implemented overnight. So that is why we also in the PSL operate on a principle of revolutionary optimism. And a lot of times people hear that term and they're like, what is that? Revolutionary optimism is not a feeling, it's a necessity. It's a commitment to struggle for a better world even when it feels impossible. And being grounded in the fact that our ancestors have been fighting for liberation for hundreds of years, and that is our tradition. They didn't do it alone. Every right that we have won under capitalism was stolen from us, and the masses of people took them back. We clearly still have so much to fight for, but it is a testament to the collective effort of millions of people that we're even in a position to do that today, that we're able to gather and have meetings like this. There have been times in this country where you couldn't do this. And there may be times in the future where we're looking at some of those same prospects, but we need to, you know, build our boat before the storm, as they say.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, exactly. And so we are the people who have the power to change society.
Yep.
Y'all and me. You know, it's not just us in this room, it's all the people that we know, all our co-workers, all our neighbors, the people that we see at the grocery stores, our delivery drivers. Shout out to our UPS comrades.
Try on the Amazon next.
That's, hell yeah. That is what keeps revolutionary optimism alive. And so, yeah, going back to the idea of optimism and like revolutionary optimism, there's, you know, people take different meanings for these kinds of things. A traditional optimist would say something like, you know, it's okay. Fascism is always bound to fail. These people are, you know, they're incompetent. They could never actually sustain a society. Who's ever heard an argument like that before? Somebody say something like that. Yeah, that's like a typical or a typical traditional optimist who just, you know, is seeing the glass half empty, thinking maybe this will be all right. Now there's also reactionary optimism. And those people say things like, you know who's going to save us? Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom. Those people are not the kinds of optimists that we want to be associating with. A revolutionary optimist says, we have the power to reorganize society, and we all have a part to play in building it. There is a path for us to actualize our collective power and determine for ourselves what our future is going to look like. And now, I need you all to remind me, who's got the power?
We got the power!
What kind of power?